Mr. Colin Nathan, I know we sent you on a bit of a run around, but we're here. Thank you. How's things going?
Firstly, Viva, thanks for having me on your platform. It's been 2 years. We were supposed to do this a couple of years ago, you know. And then you send me on this wild goose chase, and I'm thinking, where the fuck's this guy taking me to?
Sorry,
it's good to be here.
I don't know how that happened, but yeah.
Just want to say, like, I do follow your stuff, and you're doing a great job for the fighting community.
Thank you, sir.
Particularly MMA. I'm a fan of. So, yeah, I really appreciate your work, and you need to take a bow as well.
Thank you. Really, really appreciate that. Obviously, I think a great starting point is you had some big fights yesterday. We do sometimes watch the finer art of boxing, especially at the moment because there's nothing happening, and you're like, yes, something's on the TV. You had Mr. Rainer Liebenberg, Rowan Campbell, which I know it was like built up quite nicely, pretty big fight. A little bit of controversy in terms of, we'll get into that from Boyd Allen's perspective. So what was that like, man? How is it to be back in action? And I know boxing has kind of been back, but they seem to be pressing a lot faster than MMA at the moment. Yeah,
it's also kind of weird because there's no crowds. So it's kind of like you go into a venue, and I've done commentary for shows on SABC, is where you go in and there's some great fights, and there's just like no one, you know, in the hall or the venue and so forth. So it's like a little weird. It's good to be back. I kind of miss being in the corner. Obviously, I've done work outside of being a trainer within the sport of boxing. So yeah, I mean, it was a year. It's kind of funny because I was thinking prior to going to the dressing room, I was thinking, let me just go through in my head how to tape hands, because it's been over a year, you know? And then literally when I sat Rainer down, I started taping his hands. It's like something I'll just never forget. So it's just great to be back, and it was just a great fight for South African boxing. One-sided, if I'm honest. But I'm glad thank God we got the victory. And we're going to make mention that Rainer donated his entire purse to a child charity and welfare. So big kudos to him and respect to him. And respect to Rowan, who showed a lot of balls in the fight too.
It was a bit of a strange fight, because I thought, well, look, Colin's coming tomorrow. I'm going to have to watch this with an open mind and see what's going on here. Because in the first round, it looked like maybe Rowan was trying to get a highlight reel for some MMA, like shooting a double leg, and it was very, very, very strange. Do you think it was like, a lot of fighters will often talk about they couldn't get out of the change room and these kind of things happen? Or do you think there was some more like strategy going on there?
In the press leading up to this fight, I said that this was the wrong fight for Rowan. I was very confident going in. Not overconfident, because it's boxing. Obviously, you can never, nothing's a sure bet. But I did say that it was the wrong fight for him at the wrong time. If you looked at that first round, he fell into a clinch within the first minute. And in the second clinch, he actually got clipped by the same left hook the next round that he got put over with.
Yeah.
And he kind of scrambled for that clinch. I don't know, you know, Rowan in his fights always starts tentatively, if you've seen, you know, pulls back, he's got a bit of a jerky move in the middle. We didn't allow him to get into that. Our whole plan was to offset his momentum. Rowan's style is all based on momentum on the front foot. Yeah. So our whole plan was to offset his momentum and rhythm on the jab. The thing with us is that I wanted Rainer to impose his will right in the beginning, and that threw him off completely. Rainer kept coming, pressing, and the jab, time and time again, kept snapping Rowan's head back. And he couldn't get into a rhythm. You couldn't even do that side-to-side slipping movement that he normally does, because we just simply didn't allow him to.
Yeah, it was super interesting. And I think for a guy like Rainer, he's what, like 37, 36 now?
37 years old.
He's been in the game a long time. It's always, like, you see it a lot in MMA. You get the young lion versus the veteran, and it's always intriguing to see how it works out. And it was, like you said, it was a massive fight for SA boxing. And like I said, at the same time, when there's not much on, there's not much happening. Like fight fans are the biggest degenerates. They were like, what time must I wake up? 1 a.m. No problem. Who's fighting? Don't care. I'm gonna watch it. You know what I mean? That's the way it goes. So it was a very good sign to see SA boxing back. You've obviously played a massive part in SA boxing. I want to try and figure out exactly, because you're involved with MTK, you're involved with promoting, training.
So promoting, not yet. The rumors are starting to circulate, which I'm not at liberty to talk about right now. Cool. So we'll just, keep the suspense going. But there are rumors.
Keep the rumors flowing.
Yeah, keep the rumors flying. But it's not a rumor if it's true, right? So management's obviously a big part of my career now. The business side of boxing is a big part of my career. I fell out with Golden Gloves in just over 3 years ago, which was really tough for me. So there was obviously a lot of needle yesterday as well. Rowan's a Golden Gloves fighter.
Yeah.
Rando used to be. Obviously, we weren't expected to win. So there's obviously, unfortunately in boxing, or fortunately, it should never be personal. It's always objective, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets a bit personal. But so going back to the career side, so obviously training is my passion. I love training fighters, and I love developing fighters into world-class level. And the management and the business side, something that I really, really, and I'm not in it by choice, it's because I was put in that position when I fell out with Golden Gloves. But I really do love the sport of boxing, and I'm very blessed to do, sitting here in an interview. If boxing wasn't in my life, you would walk past me and you wouldn't give a shit. So I'm grateful for the sport for giving me a special life.
Sure. How did you get into training and boxing in itself? Because you've been involved this almost your entire life, from what I can see. So it's not like the easiest path to follow, especially when it comes to like training. I know fighters are difficult to deal with,
especially for a Jewish boy, right? Not your typical Jewish boy. So it's basically, I got bought a pair of gloves when I was 4 years old. My late father and mother were, so my mother's still alive. My late father was involved in boxing. My grandfather was as well. And literally, I just fell in love with the sport like from an early age. I got taken to the boxing gym when I was 7 years old. Kept nagging my late dad. And I wanted to be a fighter, And a lot of people don't know this, that I was a competitive judoka. I had over 200 amateur fights. I was the SA judo champion, got brown belt. I'm pissed that I never went for my black. I went overseas, and then what happened was, I kind of stopped doing judo. It was enough. I started partying and trying to kiss too many girls, but
as we all do.
But boxing was always my first love. And when I was 16, I had to make a choice: either box for the Western Province boxing team, or choose judo, which I was doing really well at for the Western Province judo team. So that stage, I chose judo. I won the SA championships that year. But the same year, I bought myself a pair of mitts. And I thought, okay, so if I can't be a fighter, let me start coaching. And literally, when I was in high school, on my spare weekends, I would go to a boxing gym and hold mitts for anyone and anyone. I just wanted to get experience. But before that, I got my license at the age of 12. And to this day, it's a South African boxing record, because the new act only allows when you're 18.
Okay.
The old act...
12 sounds incredibly young for
So the old act had no age limit. And when I was 10 years old, I used to come to the corner with my dad. And the late Marcus Temple of the Western Cape Boxing Commission would always say, get this kid out of here. Like, they'll chase me away. And then he said to my dad the one day, there's no age in the act. Get your son licensed, and he can be in the corner with you. So when I was 12, I started taping hands, working cuts, and I became the youngest second in South African boxing history, which will never be broken because of the new act.
Yeah, that's awesome. Rock's pulled up a cool picture there.
Yeah, I did that on purpose. That was last week. I did it on purpose. Hickey Butler was doing a photo shoot in the gym, and he brought the belt with, and I was like, I got to take this as an opportunity. Mind games are a big thing for me in boxing.
Sure.
And I know a lot of people who I was going up against yesterday would have seen that. And that was basically a reminder to say, look, there are levels in boxing, especially when it comes to training fighters. And yesterday, to me, the fight was about levels, not just with the fighters, but training fighters too. So that was kind of a message last week. And I know maybe came across as a little arrogant. If I offended people, I apologize, but I'm not sure. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a social worker. It's not my responsibility to look after people's feelings.
Sure.
But I'm in business yesterday.
Yeah.
Like I said to you, it was a very satisfying victory for me yesterday on a personal level as well. But the ring belt there've only been 2 trainers in South African boxing history whose fighters have won that belt. And the other one was I believe it was in 1950.
Sure, long
Yeah,
time.
1950. 55. No, that was big. Anyway, irrespective, modern day era, I'm the only other trainer.
Okay.
The other one was Mike Papatawil, so it's a long time ago.
It's a long lineage in the tire wheels.
So I was very, I very rarely sit back and admire my career. It's only times when I do interviews like this and I think, okay, I've done nicely, you know. But the thing is that I'm not going to settle. Whenever I have a good win, I'm always thinking, like, I want to get another world champion. How am I going to do this? So, like, I'm never satisfied, and I hope that I never lose that, because if I do, complacency sets in.
Sure.
And complacency's a motherfucker, man. You got to keep working hard at what you're doing, and you got to keep wanting to achieve. And that's always what I'm thinking. I was like, what's next? How can I achieve more?
You mentioned something yesterday. Obviously, there was a lot of personal stuff going on. Am I right? I'm trying to remember. Obviously, shout out to Hayden Jones, who does a great job for you guys on the boxing side, on the media side. There was a time, I'm pretty sure he was going back and forward as any good media representative would do, but there was a bit of, I want to say, animosity. I don't know if that's the right word between you and the Smiths. I mean, like, in any combat sport, there's always going to be major gym rivalry, which I think makes the sport more exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As long as it stays clear of a point. You understand what I'm saying? So is that a good assumption?
If you noticed after the fight yesterday, I went to Peter's corner.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, like, it's nothing personal. It's always objective. And also what I did was, and I told him, I goaded him because I knew I'd get the response that I wanted, and I knew I would upset them. And again, it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Peter and I, we cool now. I think the rivalry's over for now until we have, another fight. But that's cool. Big respect to him. Big respect to Rowan. They went through with the fight. I didn't think they would eventually. Ultimately they did. I didn't think it would ever get to the point where we didn't. And I actually said in one of the interviews, like, I was so sick of talking about it because it was on and then it was off, and it was just such bullshit. So respect to them for actually going through with the fight. But listen, rivalry's good. Yeah. As long as it's spicy. It's never personal. I never swore his mother. I think he took it a bit personal with me, saying some derogatory things about me, but inevitably I think the result speaks for itself yesterday anyway, so it is what it is. It's
always a risk when you talk a bit of smack. You've got to, the win is much sweeter and the loss is a lot harder.
So here's the thing, is that I don't mind talking smack because I can back it up. People can call me an arsehole, and I've upset people, and I know the people who hate me. Again, I'm not here to worry about people's feelings.
Sure.
If you care about me, I'll care about you. I care about my fighters. I care about my kids. I care about my family. Other than that, if you choose to hate me, I can't help that.
Sure.
I think it comes with maturity. I think like 5-6 years ago it would have upset me that you didn't like me. And I probably would have phoned you and said, why don't you like me? No, I just don't care. So it should never be about, like I'm saying to you, I'm not a social worker. I've got a great psychologist, Linecar, big shout out to him, that's helped me out throughout the years, but there's my father's death and so forth. But in the end of the day, this is boxing, and it's not an easy sport.
Sure.
And the people around the sport, they're not easy people. So there's a lot of ego involved. And I admit, do I have an ego? Yes, of course. I want to win, man. This is, the more I win, my fighters earn more money. I can look after my family in a much bigger capacity as well. So I'm not stupid about it. But by the same token, like, you play the system and you play the game. And if you're not geared up for it, and if you don't have a thick skin, then boxing, even MMA, you're in the wrong sport.
100%. There was an interesting scenario yesterday, and we can start to use this to tie into MMA. So actually on the way, someone was messaging me about the same saga. So I can't remember which round it was, but Rowan was basically getting a 10 count, and the count got to 8. Ref checked his hands and allowed it to continue. We saw the same situation happen with Boyd Allen. Obviously, everyone's going to always protect their corner and stand up for their corner, and I understand that completely. Boxing and MMA, and it was this whole thing, and MMA guys were like, this is robbery, and boxing said, this is the rules, and it was this whole thing. But now, we saw the same situation play out, and Rowan was given the chance to continue where Boyd wasn't. I mean, we're trying to get like analysis on what happened. People saying, oh, but what is the guy's name?
Brandon Tace.
Yeah, Brandon Tace. And it was like, yeah, but Brandon Tace and the referee, their family are friends, and like all of this kind of stuff. So you remember the situation I'm talking about? With
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I've just remembered now that when Boyd got clipped with that left hook, it was also at the end of the round.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put my neck on the block, and I might come under criticism for this, but I thought the referee fucked up.
Yeah.
And Jaap Evenezen's a friend of mine. I think he's a great referee, a great official. Those are the rules, right? Yeah. So there's rules, and there's in the spirit of the sport.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Peter Smith and I were discussing this in the rules meeting, which was very civil. We were all cool. And I still made the comment. I said, if my fighter does that,
yeah,
it was clear that Boyd did not know the rules.
Yeah.
When a referee counts, because in new modern day boxing, if a fighter takes a hard shot, the referee's discretion is, if he can't recover, he's going to wave it off. But if a referee counts, he wants to see what he's got.
Yeah.
The referee counted to see where Boyd was. Boyd got up, he was hurt. But by the time he got to 7-8, he was clear. He was looking at the referee like this with his arms on the ropes. Now, three things could have happened. One was, walk to me. The other scenario was pull his hands down and see if his body was limp.
Yeah.
And the third thing is give him a sobriety test. Walk to the left, walk to the right. Let me see what I got. I don't think it was the right call because it wasn't in the spirit of the sport.
Yeah.
Was it in the rules? Yes, it was. So you can look at it two ways. Was the referee correct? Well, yes, he was by the rules.
Yeah.
But in the spirit of the sport, I don't think he was.
So the major difference between, because if you watch the sequence with Rowan, it's quite bad because he like almost face plants to the deck.
It was an equilibrium shot and he fell and he collapsed again. Would I have complained if they waved it off? No, of course I wouldn't have complained because we would have won.
But the major difference, Colin, was trying to say is that Boyd sat with his arms on the rope, and that's what kind of guys were saying, like, look, he did it to himself by like leaning against the rope. He had to come stand up, it's quite funny how those scenarios happen again, and we get to see a second reference on how. But like in playing the devil's advocate, like any combat sport, any ref or judge is going to be objective in their own opinion on how they see things at the same time. So they apply the rules differently as well, which is interesting. But it's quite funny because the MMA community is up in arms again. They're like, the same thing fucking happened to Boyd Allen. How come he didn't get to carry it?
Yeah, and it's a valid point. Yeah. It is a valid point. So when I watched a fight with Boyd and Brandon, I thought, I'm not saying Boyd wouldn't have won the fight because he just looked off color that night. And I told Boyd this. I mean, but give him another chance. It's a championship fight. In the spirit of the sport, I'll give you another example. Anthony Joshua just fought Kubrat Pulev, right? Yeah. And there was a South African referee who I believe is the best official in African boxing, Dion Duarte. And I believe it was in the third round, Joshua caught him and Pulev turned his back. Now, by rights, you turn your back, you can wave it off because body language, you don't want to fight. But Dion made an instinctive call there. Do I play by the rules or do I play in the spirit of the sport? And he countered Pulev. And in my opinion, he did the right thing.
Yeah.
It was in the spirit of the sport, not playing by the rules. So that's what you gotta understand is that some referees play by the rules.
Sure.
And sometimes they rob the fans of a good fight.
Yeah.
So Tony, I believe, did the right thing by giving Rowan a chance.
Yeah.
Didn't help him, but he did the right thing.
Yeah, that's important. Like, it's not to say, and like it's funny when those kind of things happen because you actually forget about the fight that happened, and that was the beauty and the magic. And you're talking about what the referee did. I feel that's always the biggest travesty. And referees make mistakes in every sport.
Because we're human. Yeah. I make mistakes and so do you. And it's human error sometimes.
Sure.
We get judgment calls wrong.
Sure.
But unfortunately, if you're in the corner and you feel bereaved, obviously you're going to attack the referee.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it. A guy hits my guy on the borderline. I'm thinking low blow. But unfortunately, because I have an emotional investment in that fighter, you do get emotionally carried away, and it's only human nature.
Sure.
Sometimes it's a problem that we have with judging and refereeing, even in MMA, is we have our favorites.
Yeah.
you know, you get a fighter, a referee going in, you know, and they're trying to be objective, but human nature is some referees and judges can block it out, but some, you know, you got the house promoter, house fighter, you know, I'll never get another assignment if I don't kind of, you know, and it happens. Yeah. It happens, you know. Will we ever get away from that? No.
Yeah, I agree with you. You have to have human error. That's unfortunately the way it goes. Are you for or against this modern day movement from MMA to boxing? Well, I want to say vice versa, but it never really happens the other way. Guys go with the boxing skill set to MMA, but you're not seeing like boxers move over to MMA. I just think there's too much involved. But we're seeing a lot of, okay, I think here locally it's been a bit different because it's been like, Boyd is different because Boyd is like more of a boxing purist, I would say, but obviously has the ground knowledge and a bit of wrestling knowledge. So the crossover was quite smooth in many degrees, but it wasn't accepted by everybody in the boxing community. It was a bit strange in the beginning.
So Boyd and I are personal friends. So big shout out to Boyd. I was actually one of the guys, along with Richie, to encourage him to go to boxing.
Because I was going to say, they started off actually at your gym. I remember they were doing sparring sessions with your guys.
Yes, correct. And Boyd's not just a friend to me. I consider him family. So the thing is that a lot of people don't actually realize Boyd started in boxing.
Yeah.
His background's actually amateur boxing. When he came to my gym, there was already the fallout with Golden Gloves, and he wanted to go to Golden, and I didn't really want to get involved in that. My schedule was really busy at the time because I was busy, obviously, getting involved with MTK at the time, and I was traveling. So Boyd's still welcome in my gym. In fact, here's the thing. I opened my gym up for sparring to anyone and everyone. I've had a fallout with trainers, and they can still come to my gym. I leave my ego at the door. If it benefits my athletes, the more the merrier for sparring. But the thing is that what we have to accept and understand that I don't mind if guys cross over. And now we're getting a situation of you get these YouTubers are trying it. So here's the thing. As a purist, obviously on the YouTuber's perspective, it kind of pisses me off. You know, they get paid a fortune in these young kids who are really trying to make. But here's the biggest plus for me is that eyeballs get attracted to boxing. And if it happens the other way around and a popular fighter goes into the cage and attracts eyeballs to MMA, then I'm all for it. We want the sports to grow. And inevitably, if it means that, then so be it. Let them cross over. So, and Boyd did well. He was pushed, but he did well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Boyd was like the perfect example for the crossover because of his skill set. You know what I mean? I think he had he brings something slightly different technically to boxing. But I mean, like you talk about Rocky, please pull up that video that Warren sent yesterday. Just check out Ben Askren's Instagram. Because we've been laughing because we were like, I think MMA is about to lose this one with the Ben Askren versus. I mean, Ben Askren is like one of.
You're not going to throw me a curveball because I'm not sure if I even know this guy.
No. I just want to show. Okay. I just want to get as a trainer your technical standpoint on his skills. Check his stories, maybe, boy. Oh, that eye poke is horrible. Keep going. Or otherwise, just go down. There'll be another one. So obviously, he's going to fight. I don't even know, one of the Paul dudes in a boxing match.
No, he's fighting his brother. What's his name?
Jake Logan or Jake. I don't know which one's which, to be honest. Yeah. Bottom right.
It's a fight.
Okay, that's the fight. But yeah, here's the training video that we were watching.
Okay. I tell you right now, he's a little stiff.
Look, and he's gotten better.
Can someone move his head?
And we were laughing. We're like, yeah, we think MMA is going to lose this one, I'm afraid. So like, and you know what the thing is, like, credit to the Pauls because they figured this one out. You're going to take this guy who was ridiculously good in MMA because he was a wrestler. He had this crazy wrestling style, taking dudes down, became champion all over the world. And now you're going to box with the dude who clearly has got no boxing. Look, I can't say he's got no boxing skills, but I'm going to tell you, like, that's not what he's known for. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm going to put this in perspective because I kind of know where you're going with this, right? Okay. So Mayweather McGregor, and you know we were going to talk about this coming out.
Yeah, we have to.
So How would Mayweather have done in a cage with McGregor? Let's be real.
No.
So do you think Mayweather knew that? Of course he
Yeah.
did, because Mayweather's ego is far bigger than the galaxy, right?
Sure.
And he banks on that unbeaten record. That's why he's the greatest of all time. We're not even going to get into that debate because, we can debate that all day. The thing is, right, is that there were some guys, and I'm not knocking the MMA community. Yeah. There were some guys who thought McGregor could beat Mayweather.
Oh yeah, I was one of them. I was so deep in the Kool-Aid. I was actually on 947 with Kevin Larena, and we were arguing semantics about.
Okay, were you on drugs at the time?
Look, when I look back, I think I might have been.
Did you smoke them?
Because Kevin looked at me, he's like, there's no ways he's going to win. I was like, he can definitely win.
So I want to ask you a question. After 2 rounds, when Mayweather's behind, were you thinking, fuck, I'm going to get this one right? With that uppercut in the second round, right? What were you thinking?
You know what, to be honest, when the fight started, I was like, I think I've overestimated, because it looked very similar to Mayweather versus Canelo.
Right.
And the same thing kind of happened to me with Canelo, and I was like, this is it. Mayweather's bitten off more than he can chew.
I want to ask you something. When last did you see Mayweather high guard and walk a guy down? He can't compound. Anyway, it goes back to that. I don't care what people say about McGregor Mayweather, right? That did wonderful numbers, and it brought 2 sports together in one night, even though it was boxing. The thing is that what we saw was an event, not a fight. Almost like Pacquiao and Mayweather was a damn squid on the fight, right? So what you got was an event.
Yeah.
But it did bring the 2 sports together, and it brought that rivalry together. There was no ways in a million years that Mayweather was going to lose that fight. Yeah. But if the shoe was on the other foot and it was in the cage, I would have put my house down, and McGregor would have probably choked him unconscious within the first minute. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't think Mayweather, that motherfucker would never tap. Never tap.
No. But even something similar like a leg kick, it's gonna hurt.
Absolutely,
it's gonna hurt.
So
the same way, realistically, Mayweather completely outclassed him. It would be the reverse in MMA. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The difference is there's just too many tools in MMA. You can't be a boxer and be like, okay, cool, with no other background, no wrestling, no jiu-jitsu. It's just not possible. You know what I mean? And everyone was like, bring him to the cage. I'm like, guys, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And that's why I've got so much respect for MMA, because there's so many codes that you got to incorporate in a fight. But the debate with the thing is with boxing is that no sports, and I'm including all other sports, has a deeper history like boxing.
Yeah.
So I just, when the crossover happens and there's a big fight and there's big opportunity, again, you got to think about the athletes. McGregor made tons of money, so did Mayweather. Respect to that. And even with the YouTubers, as a boxing purist, I do kind of whinge.
Yeah.
But then I think to myself, well, wait a minute, Colin, it brings average sporting fans, attracting them to the sport of boxing, which I'm okay with.
Yeah. The big thing with the polls as well is that I must be honest, I'm completely against it, but whatever.
But you understand my perspective on it does bring attention to the sport.
That's what I'm saying. The difference that they always bring is this pocket of people that would never watch sports any other way, and they're a young age. So in some way, maybe they're going to influence and inspire a world champion down the line. You don't know. That's the one big positive. Where it gets frustrating, and I'm sure for you as well, is these YouTubers, Ben Askren is very smart because his stand-up, everyone knows it in the MMA world, his stand-up is dog shit. You know what I mean? So you've picked this MMA guy, but have you really? It's frustrating when they starting to call out this guy and that guy, and it's 50 million. And I'm like, dude, that dude is going to beat the shit out of you.
$50 million? Yeah. You maybe think to yourself, it might be worth it,
Yeah. No commission is going to be okay, cool, we can allow this, because they're going to get hurt. It's really, there's a limit. There's only so far you can go. Even Ben Askren, who's got terrible stand-up, we're really, okay, guys, you're pushing it now. You're dealing with world-class fighters now. Now you're pushing it a little bit, So
you question the commission. That's a great point, because McGregor was licensed in a professional fight to fight Mayweather.
Nobody knows how.
I just shook my hand. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me, But, it counted on Mayweather's unblemished record.
Yeah.
So, again, I kind of think, fuck, what's going on with my sports? And then I think to myself, but wait a minute, Colin, this is the modern era. We got to, things change.
Sure.
It's you look, you know, you look at newspapers. I'll give you an example. 30 years ago, promoters could control the narrative, right? So they could have writers and journalists in their pockets. Nowadays, anyone who's got a smartphone who's on Facebook is a journalist. I don't like your shit. I'm gonna send out a message and I don't like your. You can't pay 20,000 people on a boxing or MMA platform to shut up. You just simply can't afford it. But back 30 years ago, when we never had the internet and when we never had social media, you could control the narrative.
Sure.
Now everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got a voice. And the thing is, you either love it or you embrace it or you hate it. And you have to, in this day and age, and we've seen it in boxing. Why is Don King failed and Bob Arum hasn't? I'll give you a perfect example. Because Bob Arum knew, surround yourself with a young team, that social media, his stepson, Todd DeBoof, was that kind of guy to take over and realize, like, this is the next generation. And what I appreciate about boxing and MMA is that fighters now have a voice.
Yeah.
Because MMA 30 years ago didn't have the popularity that it has now, but fighters are unhappy with Dana White, they're going to tweet about it.
Yeah.
They might not get back on the UFC fight card so quickly, but they've got a voice.
Yeah.
And back in the day, 30 years ago, fighters never really had a voice. And that's why the fighter is the most important asset to anything. Because without fighters, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Sure.
You know, the fighter is the person who made me who I am today. And I love fighters. I'm very intrigued by them. But a lot of people need to understand that it's not about the managers. It's not about the trainers. It's not about the promoters. It's not about the agents. It's about the athletes. If we don't have athletes, we don't have a sport in MMA and boxing, and that's the bottom line.
That's quite funny. I actually just said something just like that the other day. It's a massive thing, and I think when we get caught up in the lights and glitz and glamour of combat sport, we forget that the athletes are at the heart of it, you know, and that's actually going to move on to the next question. Where I am personally like in this constant battle with the MMA administration from a MMA South Africa point of view, not from the promotional point of view. I don't agree with a lot of things they do. I'm very outspoken about it. It lands me into trouble, but you know, I've got big enough shoulders to deal with that. Boxing has been synonymous for that kind of stuff. I mean, there was a good example recently. I'm trying to think who it was. I think it was Adrian Broner. Like wins a fight, but like everyone kind of goes like, well, that's boxing, you know. And
you're talking about the decision that was bad?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which again, it goes back to what we were saying about 20 minutes to 15 minutes ago when I said, you're never going to stop bad decisions.
Sure.
You know, you're always going to have perception. I'll give you a perfect example. You and I go to a bar, we have a few drinks, and a blonde walks past us. And you say to me, Cole, that's the hottest blonde I've ever seen in my life. And I'll say to you, I think she's dog ugly. It's perceptions, right?
Sure.
Now, when it comes to judging and scoring, I'm glad you brought that up. It's not rocket science, you know? So when I do commentary, there's 3 phases to a round. The first minute, the second minute, the third minute. MMA should be no different. 5 minutes around, same thing. I'll give you another example with Adesanya losing 3 rounds to 2. I think one judge had a 4 rounds to 1. Am I correct in saying that? So if it's clear, it's clear. Yeah. It's like, this is a cup of coffee, right? I can tell you, this is a beer. You're going to look at me and think, what are you smoking? But this is still a cup of coffee. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, some people's perceptions differ from others. Some judges like looking at different things. Effective aggression, single pot shotting, ring generalship. Some judges like an aggressive fight on the front foot. My mother was the first white woman professional boxing judge in the country. So her school and thought of judging is old school. She likes guys coming aggressively on the front foot. But today in modern boxing, guys can box off the back foot, counterpunch effectively and win the round. But the old school judges think that's a very negative approach. And they'll give the round to the guy coming forward. Now that's wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong. And that's why I'm saying to you, this is not rocket science. So going back to the whole Adrian Broner thing, bad decisions in boxing and MMA, we are never going to stop that.
Yeah.
There was one thought a few years ago, well, why don't we just have computer-based scoring? Again, you're depending upon a robot or a machine that's also subject to be flawed. You know, so inevitably it goes down to perception, what you like as a judge and what I like as a judge, going back to the blonde in the bar, it's always going to be like that. And unfortunately, we're never going to get away from it.
It's quite funny because MMA is just like, they've just adopted boxing scoring. Like, cool, we'll just use this. And like now they're starting to tweak things. So like with the Adesanya fight, what was crazy was someone was scoring 10-8s in there. And we were like, bro, 10-8 is like literally you are being beaten for 5 minutes. Like you've got no reply. That never happened. But at the same time, I think it's bad calls, funny enough. I think as promoters, like big top promoters like Dana White and these kind of guys, in the back of their mind, to be honest, I think at times they quite enjoy it because it creates more talk. You understand what I'm saying? Sunday comes, Monday comes, and everybody's talking about the fights. You know what I mean? The more outrageous, the more talk it gets. Like I must be honest, like I'll watch local boxing because there's guys that I know, guys that I train with, and I'm invested. When it comes to Adrian Broner, like I would probably rather bang my head against a wall just because I don't like him personally.
Something embarrassing.
But you heard about it. You know
embarrassing when you come to the gym. There's a picture of Adrian and I up in my gym wall. Okay.
No, it's not about it.
No, I'll tell you a story. So I had a choice between him and Deontay Wilder. I was at an event. Deontay walked past, Adrian passed. And, you know, Adrian was like supposed to be the next big thing. And I fucked that one up, man. Like I really fucked that one. And it's like embarrassing. But I'll tell it like it is.
I'll still take a photo with him happily. You'll be like,
going back to the controversial calls. I've often said this in interviews that controversy is the lifeline of boxing. Yeah. And it sells. Promoters love controversy. Yeah. They love controversy. Why? Because it draws more attention to the sport, sell more tickets. And that's why you get a guy like Prince Nassim Hamed back in the late 90s and early 2000s. You know, people hate Chris Eubank as well. Guys hated him, you know. And the thing is, they bought tickets to see them lose. And the promoter loves that. Yeah. I'll give you another example. And I think he's a promoter's fucking dream, is Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
Kid is good looking. He punches hard. Seems like he's got a bit of a girl problem at the moment because I know he's engaged. He's got his second kid from a different woman on the way. But here's the thing. To me, he's the new generation golden boy, like Oscar De La Hoya. He can punch. He's vulnerable. He got put over against Luke Campbell, got up and he won. Good looking kid, a massive following on Instagram. Yeah. And he is a promoter's dream. Guys want to see him lose, so they'll buy tickets or they'll buy pay-per-view. And inevitably, that's what promoters want. I don't think De La Hoya is going to be holding on to him for much longer. You know, you see Canelo now switch. He's now he's doing his own thing with Eddie Hearn. But inevitably, that's the kind of stuff that's a promoter's dream, trainer's dream, manager's dream, agent's dream. A guy who can sell himself like that's we want characters, you know. And I have to be straight with you. Rainer Liebenberg is a character of South African boxing, and he's going to be missed. But going back, we need that controversy in the sport.
100%. With that in mind, what would you say? I mean, it's funny, like from an MMA perspective, looking at boxing, and I don't know if it goes both ways, but like MMA people always look at boxing and like say, oh, you know, but that, like I said to you earlier, I mean, well, that's boxing for you. But boxing always seems to be a little bit more money around, especially here locally. They seem to have, I mean, they've been around a lot longer, so we've got to give them the benefit. Like I said, you guys have got shows back, you're back on SuperSport and things are happening, so you always got that front foot forward. What would you say is the general state of South African boxing? Because I think 5 years ago, I think boxing was in a very weird place.
I still think it's in a weird place.
Yeah, but there's like we've had a resurgence of like younger fighters like Rowan Campbell and Chris Thompson and Boyd Allen and the name goes on. Hecky Butler has obviously been doing amazing things and like really carrying that flag, and so the list goes on. But so there's been like this almost like resurgence in a following, like a re-love for boxing.
I think it comes in waves. I think there's always like a death of talent, and then all of a sudden there's some really good amateurs coming through with some surprise packages. And that's always going to be the system. Even in MMA, you got like there's no talent, and all of a sudden there's like 5 or 6 young kids that you think, okay, wow, these kids are the future. I think boxing's still in a weird way from the perspective of you can see if you follow the politics of the sport that there's the old generation and then there's like this new wave of guys coming through. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, I was part of the old generation, and then I split from the old generation, and I like to consider myself part of the new generation. Lateral thinking. Sure. The younger guys like to take more risks. So for me, if my fighter's at a level where he's world class, I'll throw him in against a world champion.
Sure.
Because the greater the risk, the greater the reward. And I don't care if a fighter loses because you can come back. I don't protect anyone's and inevitably, I think there's a big difference in age between the new generation and the old generation, because it's that intergenerational gap that makes decisions a lot more interesting. So the older guys don't want to take risks. They want to protect what they've got. Where the younger guys like you and I, we take the risks because we're young enough to understand that if we fail, if we fuck up, we'll rebuild. And I think the older generation in the sports, I'm not so sure about MMA, maybe I stand to be corrected, that the older guys don't want to take the risks. Where the younger guys do, because we're young and we're ambitious.
I think the key, as you were saying that, I think the key is aggression. Like, younger generations are more aggressive. They want to do things now. They want to get going. You know what I mean? No, like, fight 10 tomato cans, get a record, and let's go. You know what I mean? Like, younger guys are like, I'll try it. You know what I mean? I think that's a big difference. I think across the board in most sports, you know, I think the younger generation are almost a little bit more impatient. You know what I mean? They want.
Yeah, we're definitely impulsive. There's no question the impulsiveness is probably age related.
Yeah.
But also, I think the younger generation as well, we're very ambitious and we want to achieve.
Yeah.
You know, I'm old enough, but I still think like I'm in my teens.
Sure.
And I'll take those risks.
Sure.
Because I know that if you don't take the step and if you don't take the chance, you'll never know.
Sure.
And I'd rather know than never know. You know, you don't want to fight 100 tomato cans and then think when you like towards the end of your career, you're thrown with a world-class fight and you actually win, you think, shit, man, I've wasted my career. You want to know at some point.
Yeah. On the older generation, do you think boxing is ever going to... Can it not just be Campbell versus Liebenberg? Does it have to be like D-Day 5.0? Is that like something that has to happen? Or like, are we eventually going to move past that? I love the names, to be honest. I'm like, yes, this is Fist of Fury. Fuck yes. I can't wait for this. But I always have a good chuckle at those names. Do you think we can just have like Lorena versus whoever? Or does it have to? It's like in a boxing thing. You have to have a name.
I'm not sure. I think you need to ask the publicist. But yeah, I think it's kind of like 80s, isn't it?
It is very much. So like in MMA, I know like Pride used to do that. It was like Pride 29, the Rumble in Japan. And I was like, at the time it was fucking awesome. But now
the
like,
war for it all.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you know, exactly. I'm like, guys, like,
so
we can just have the headliners. We don't have to have a name. We can
look, like, you know, in defense of the older generation, I quite like the shows having a storyline.
Yeah,
you know?
Sure.
So it does do that. I think every fight card should tell a story. And what I mean by that, probably this is more boxing than MMA. So when I say a fight card should have a story, so you want a competitive fight. Sometimes you get a boring fight. You need a controversial fight. You need a mismatch sometimes, like a first round. We're like, wow, that was a great fucking knockout. So I think every fight card should tell a story. So if they name it, so be it. But I understand your perspective. Again, you'd have to ask the publicist to come up with that, you know?
I love that shit. I do.
So you for the name? Or?
No, I like to laugh at it. If I'm honest, I have a good chuckle. I'm like, yes, this is the name I've been waiting for. You know what I mean? Like, Golden Gloves, no posts. What the hell? What is going on here?
Maybe you've been blocked like I have.
Maybe. Maybe actually. Surely they've made posts by now.
Well, the fighter lost, so I'm not so sure.
Talk to us about MTK.
Right.
So MTK, as I understand, is a promotion as well as a management company, but so they don't only do boxing. They've got some MMA guys. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Do know there was some gangsters involved at some point.
Okay, so we can touch on all of that. We can touch on all of it. So it's primarily a management company. We do shows in Dubai. So MTK Global, and I head up MTK Africa for MTK Global. Okay. So I sign you, and then you fall under the MTK banner. With regards to the allegations of gangsters and so forth, Daniel Kinahan obviously was, he was associated with MTK. I want to put it on record. He has no dealings and no direct company involvement with MTK. He's an advisor. And I used this in another interview the other day, like, Mickey Mouse can come up to you, right, and advise you in your career. There's nothing in, let's talk about Boxing South Africa's Act that forbids any person off the streets advising a fighter. So my wife can advise you, or she advises me because she's the boss of the house anyway. So, but what I'm trying to say is that anyone can advise. So does Daniel Kinahan advise fighters? Yes, he does. Does he have any connection or affiliation to MTK Global? No, he doesn't. Yes, MTK is involved in MMA. They're doing really, really well. Big shout out to my guy, Colin in Dubai, big mates of mine. He heads up MTK MMA. Doing a great job. Got some really good. Darren Till's one of the athletes for us as well.
And who's what's Carl's full name?
Carl, I actually forgotten his name. He's going to kill me.
English fella.
No, American.
Okay.
Excuse me, Carl Keller. Carl Keller. Dude, if you're watching this interview, we're friends. Please forgive me. It's like I've had too much coffee, bro. Like, BK. I'm sorry.
It's old BK.
Yes, BK. Yeah, he's with us. So it's growing. It's really growing, and obviously boxing's our baby, but MTK MMA is doing nicely as well. Some
big names there. So Alexander Rakic in the mix there, Darren Till.
Yeah,
nice growing. And Dubai seems to be like it's like the new Vegas, soon to be New Vegas.
Dubai's great, yeah.
I mean, I was fortunate enough to go out to Abu Dhabi in 2018. Man,
I was watching your stuff. Like, big respect.
Those things do things differently, man.
I liked your thing where you were like too nervous to ask a question, and like
always, always, yeah.
It's like when I met Mike Tyson, it's like, like my lisp was just as good as his, you know. Yeah, but just like I said to you when we started this interview, big respect to you. You're doing such wonderful things for the community, man. You like, you know, people don't give you and Hayden Jones enough respect and credit because it's guys like you, and also I got to mention my mate. Devin Curran on SA Boxing Buzz because here's the thing, Devin's see you next Tuesday. He really is, but he calls it like it is. The thing is, right, is that promoters have to respect guys like you, and you are a journalist, whether promoters want to acknowledge that or not. Dev, for example, has got like over 10,000 followers on his boxing platform. Now, for me, that's a massive following.
Yeah.
And the thing is that he is part of the media. Now, you have to accept that because Facebook is a massive, massive marketing platform for any sport and any business and any person. So big respect to you guys.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate that. It's a lot of honest work, and I'm sure Hayden will tell you the same thing. The last thing I want to get into, Colin, your gym's been around a long time. You're still in the same place. It's like almost.
I've just moved, actually. I've just moved. Yeah, I moved to Grenville Avenue. I was in Glen Hazel for 19 years. It's crazy. I started when I was 22 in this industry.
Shoot.
And the only thing I was good at in the beginning when I opened the gym was losing money. Lost like thousands, you know? And it was like so weird. It was like, when are you going to stop making money? And I was like, I always had a dream. And people said, you're wasting your time. You're never going to make it. You're wasting your time. I'll tell you an interesting story. My mother was like never kind of proud to say my son's a boxing trainer. I did my personal training diploma, and she was like, my son's a personal trainer. I always used to say to Mom, actually, I'm a boxing trainer, be proud. So only when I started making champs, my son's a boxing trainer. So I was in Glen Hazel for 19 years, and then I needed a change because of my schedule. And I found Brad Block's old gym in Savoy State, and I like redid it, put 2 rings in, turned it into my dream gym. You must come through and take a look. And I absolutely love it. Got my man cave, which is my office. Some of my memorabilia is there because I'm not allowed in the house. Laura, that's because of you. So, yeah, just very, very blessed to have a dream gym.
Is it like the typical boxing gym you see on like TV? You've got... So your man cave is like got a couch. People are in there talking cuck all the time.
So actually,
memorabilia on the walls.
Exactly right. But what we did was, it's like one of the first gyms in the country. I actually built steel benches for guys like you want to come through and sit and watch the fighters train and take pictures and so forth. So that's what I did. And I just want to go back to you. Sorry, before we touch on my new gym, when you were talking about you doing a good job with journalism and so forth. I think the more honest you are, the more respect you're going to get.
Yeah.
And I find that now with my career as well.
It does land you in some trouble, but
again, but Alistair, you're not here to protect people's feelings. No, 100%, and if you want to get credibility in what you do, you got to be honest and straightforward. 100%. And I think that's important for anyone in any industry. You want to be taken seriously, be honest. Going back to the gym now. So yes, we built the gym. I thought 4 weeks. It took literally like closer to 3 months, but it's done. It's complete, and I'm proper in love with it.
And Ultra. Global, that's you've got a hand in there, the gloves and so on, is it?
No, that was 3.5 years ago. I just, my schedule was just too hectic. So
the ultras no more.
No.
What?
So yeah, and the glove is insane actually.
Yeah.
Double stitch Japanese leather. It's a really good high quality glove. So respect to those guys still selling it. But it's about 3.5 years ago that I stopped doing it.
Okay, fantastic, Mr. Colin Nathan. Thank you so much for your time. I'm glad we finally got this.
Yeah, I'm glad. It's nice to be
taken. But you see, you would have been in my attic. At least we got
That's
this.
cool. And I just want to say to Viva, to you, and to all the guys who are going to be watching and listening to this, I'm glad that they're bored and they've got some time to listen to you and I talk about our stuff.
I love the Viva.
Listen, Viva is a very invigorating word, very positive. And so it's let's go, champ. Viva, man.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we'll definitely come past the gym as soon as we can. Make sure you check out Colin Nathan. I'm trying to think of the whole way here. I always like to come up with these terms. I want to say the prince of South African boxing. I don't know.
Prince who's destined to be king.
100%. That's got a ring to it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll check you out soon. Peace.